Welcome back to Objective 9 in Chapter 13 of our 3A1 series, and this will be the last objective for this chapter. In Objective 9 we'll explain the basic structure, properties and applications of polymers, ceramics and composites. So to start off with, what exactly is a polymer? A polymer is simply a material that's comprised of long chains of molecules that are repeated one after the other. That's all a polymer is. And polymers is generally more accepted, I suppose, in a generality, as being called a plastic. And these can either be naturally occurring materials or they can be synthetically made. Now, the three types that we need to discuss are thermosets, thermoplastics and elastomers. And we basically need to know what the difference is between them and then some examples of where we might see them. So to start off with, let's talk about our thermoset. The best example of a thermoset is PEX, or if you're from Europe, it's called XLPE, same thing. PEX is polyethylene cross-linked, or XLPE is cross-linked polyethylene. Same idea. Now the idea of this is that we take these long chains of these molecules and then they form these very strong cross links between the chains, which basically then prevent one chain from slipping past another. Now, what that basically means for our material is then that once these things have been cured and hardened, they can't be softened by heating. If they are if they are heated, then they will end up cracking. So we can't exceed the temperature rating on these things. And most thermosets are generally limited to around about 90 degrees C. We can't go any more than that. Now another type is a thermoplastic. The best example of a thermoplastic is PVC, which is polyvinyl chloride. And we see PVC in so many applications, from things like piping to pipe fittings in the low pressure water type applications. It's used a hell of a lot. Now thermoplastic has our long chains of our molecules. They are cross-linked, but they're only very weakly bonded. And this now means that the chains are able to slip past each other. And this basically means that when we heat PVC, it gets softened and we can then form it into different shapes. So it's a very pliable, i.e. plastic material. And you may have done this at school or college in some sort of course like industrial arts or something of that nature. PVC is generally not as high a temperature rating as thermosets. Thermosets such as PEX, that's limited to around about 90. Thermoplastics generally limited to around about 70 degrees C. There are some variations, of course, depending upon what kind of plastics these are, but they're generally a good roundabout ballpark. 90 degrees for thermosets, 70 degrees for thermoplastics. Now the last type of polymer to mention is an elastomer, and this elastomer, the best example for this really I suppose is neoprene or even synthetic rubber, and you see this wrapped around piping, or you see it being used for things like gaskets or seals on HVAC ducting, things like that. Elastomers are very soft and very pliable, so think kind of like wetsuit material. That's made of neoprene. That's what an elastomer is. And elastomers are also, of course, limited to temperature ratings as well. All of these three are limited to below temperatures of around about 100 degrees C. Now, a further terms that you hear, which were terms that were discussed back at 4th class, are these things called amorphous and morphous solids. And this simply relates to the way in which the polymer chains are ordered. An amorphous chain has these polymer chains, which are these long chains of molecules, in very much random orders. They're all over the place. And the classic amorphous solid you generally learn about is glass. Other examples, of course, are the PVC or the ABS. And they're probably things you've heard in the plumbing world. So the thermoplastic, i.e. the PVC, this is an amorphous solid, for example. Other examples include polycarbonates and polystyrenes. The other type of arrangement then is called a morphous solid. Well, if amorphous has the polymer chains in random order, a morphous solid has them densely packed, but in a structured order. So the best way to sort of see an example of this is with the diagram, or the sort of picture, whatever you want to call it, at the bottom right of the screen. You can see the amorphous solid is more spread apart and the molecules are in random orders. In the crystalline structure, which is our amorphous solid, they're more densely packed and they're in a structured order. Good examples of amorphous solids are polyethylene, and we see that a lot in our industry because we see things like MDPE and HDPE. We use that for a lot of underground gas piping and water piping. So HDPE, for example, would be high density polyethylene. You can also see things like HDPP, high density polypropylene, and even things like polyester. Generally, these things are more hard and less flexible as opposed to an amorphous solid. And again, as a good temperature recommendation, all of these things that we've been mentioning here, which are our thermosets, our thermoplastics, and our elastomers, they're all limited to much below 100 degrees C. Okay, the next one to talk about is a ceramic. And ceramics are an interesting material as they can either be naturally occurring or synthetically made. And these are basically non-metallic materials that are made typically by heating and then cooling. So very much of a heat treatment type arrangement. And ceramics are made from a variety of different things, but they're generally silica-based glasses, and they also then have these things called crystalline ceramics within them. Now, we don't see ceramic used too much in our industry compared to other materials, but where we do see them being used is for things like insulators on electrical equipment, as they can withstand very high voltages and currents. And we also see ceramics being used for things like refractory, as ceramics will withstand extremely high temperatures, and we're talking here sort of 1650 degrees and up. A classic example of a ceramic is back in the days when the space shuttle was running. They used to line the space shuttle with ceramic tile as it would withstand the heat from re-entry. Now, the ceramic, very hard material, very high strength, and will withstand extremely high temperatures, but its advantages can also be its disadvantages, in that because it is so hard, it can also be quite brittle with regards to impact strength, and also if the material cracks, it can then lead to sudden failure or big chunks of it breaking away. So that can be a bit of a problem with ceramics. So care has to be taken with regards to when we select them for a use in terms of where we use them. Okay then, so let's move on and talk about the next little section, which is our last section to mention, and that is about something called composites. Let's check out this little video, which basically tells you pretty much all you need to know about composites at third class level, and then after we've taken a look at it, we'll have a quick chat, and then we'll wrap all of this up. So, let's get stuck into the video.
From huts of mud and grasses to monuments of stone and steel, the rise of modern civilization has been paced by our development of new materials. We began with earth, wood, and rocks. We built shelters and tools. We harnessed fire and learned to coax metal from stone. And then, one day, a brickmaker added straw to his clay. The result was a stronger brick and the birth of man-made composites. So what is a composite, really? Simply, it's two different materials combined. A uniform substance like Portland cement is called a monolithic material. Throw in a handful of gravel, another monolithic material, and you have concrete, a composite. In a composite, you can still see the individual monolithic materials, the cement and the gravel. They're just locked together. So why make composites? We combine dissimilar materials to create a new material that has the characteristics we need for a particular application. Portland cement is pretty tough, but you wouldn't build a bridge out of it. It's not strong enough or durable enough. Throw in some gravel, and now it's durable enough for traffic, but still not strong enough to span supports. Drop in a nice grid of steel rebar, and now you've got a composite material that's strong enough for bridge decking. In addition to increased strength and durability, composites also allow us to customize materials with the weight, flexibility, conductivity, and stability we need. Although composites can have several different components, they all have two things in common: a matrix and reinforcement. In our concrete bridge, the cement is the matrix, and the gravel and rebar are both reinforcements. Many modern composites use resins as a matrix. Add wood or wood fibers, and you have a broad family of products, from plywood and particle board to high-density fiberboard and composite decking panels. Adding glass fiber or fabric as reinforcement creates fiberglass, widely used in everything from auto body parts and boat hulls to tennis rackets and swimming pool liners. Many of the most recent advances in composites have been in the field of aerospace, where highly specialized fibers such as graphite, boron, and Kevlar are used to create incredibly strong yet amazingly lightweight materials. Composites, they're everywhere. Building materials, furniture, toys, sports equipment, the games we play, the roads we walk, the cars we drive, the planes we fly. Composites, they make so much of what we do every day possible.
So after watching the video, it covers pretty much this entire section, as I mentioned. I just want to summarize a few points that they generally get asked about on examinations. And that is, first of all, that a composite is basically a material that's made up of other materials. So the classic one, of course, that they used in the video was the concrete, where you've got your cement, you have your aggregate, and then of course you've got then your rebar material, which acts as the matrix, which helps tie it all together. Now, in terms of the matrices, or the matrix that holds your composite together, there are different types of matrices. These can be polymer matrices, metal matrices, or ceramic matrices. Now, for a polymer matrix, we've just spoke about polymers. These are things like your thermosets, your thermoplastics, things like that. So classic examples for a polymer matrix would be applications for like Kevlar, which is used for things like the military for combat body armor and things like that. You can also get things like carbon fiber, which is now used a lot in the automotive industry for carbon fiber panels, carbon fiber braking, etc. Very high strength, high heat resistant material, but very low weight. The next one then would be a metal matrix. Well, this is the example that was used in the concrete example where you had your rebar. That was a metal matrix. But other examples, they can use aluminum, for example, or silicon carbide, which is also used a lot for things like brakes and brake pads, that kind of arrangement. And then our last one uses the ceramics that we spoke about. And the classic one for ceramics, I suppose, is for anything that's going to resist extremely high amounts of heat. And we see that again in ceramic matrices being used in boilers for reinforcement around the furnace, where you have your highest temperatures, and also for reinforcing and protecting the tube ends where they make their connections into the drum from the risers and things of that nature. And these are just to protect them from high temperatures affecting the ends of those tubes. Okay, so that is it really for the end of chapter 13. Compared to the other ones that we've looked at, a fairly quick, fairly straightforward chapter, because there's no calculations in this whatsoever. However, don't let that fool you. There is quite a lot in this chapter that can be asked about, so you will have to read it a few times for you to sort of digest this material where you're happy to answer exam questions on it. So, as always, check out the questions at the end of your textbook, then check out the D2L quiz and assignment to see the kinds of things you're going to be asked about for this chapter. And then when you're ready, come back and see me for the next one. Take care, all the best.